partner was going immediately. But like, I see these like fractals and like and geometric shapes and occasional like splashes of, and this is the thatch roof of the hut, right? So nothing's there. And an occasional like real splash of vivid neon light. And then I started seeing these like orbs kind of like going up into the fractals. And then the more I looked forward and back, I'm on my back, but the more I look forward, backward, side to side, there's just hundreds or thousands of these orbs, these small orbs going up into the fractals and just sort of like playing with each other. These orbs, they were kind of like had a life to them. So like, and then at some point from me comes this orb and sort of like goes up. And then I started examining what the orbs are. So, look, I don't know. I don't know about any of this stuff. But this is just what it gave me. I don't know, same as mushrooms. I don't know if it's just scientific or if it's like another realm, whatever.
Right.
The orbs were, I call it when you pure something, when you pure it. To me, they were moments of pure artistic expression. You ever have a or a roll where you're like, I hit every fucking move.
You get in the zone.
You in the zone, sure. You pured it. In golf, you fucking hit one and you're just like fucking boom, like up, and you're like, I can't hit the green from here. You do see it go perfectly and bounce, and it's just a pure moment of artistic expression. And generally, when I see that, it makes me cry. When I listen to Nevermind, I tear up. You ever hear that album where you're like, oh, this is. They nailed it. They nailed it.
They nailed it.
The Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, this church it's being built still. It was a 200-year plan to build a perfect church.
St. Peter's Basilica in Rome.
Okay, and you see it,
Stunning.
And I went in there. I started weeping.
Start crying.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's just like it's perfect. Overwhelmingly perfect.
Yeah, it's art.
Yeah. Other moments, I was at it doesn't have to be big moments. It could be small moments. I was at the Haunted Ride at Disney back in LA, and I was with some chick, and I was like, some guy was like, right this west, and like, he's playing the role, whatever, and then like he lets go greet the next like car, and as we were slowly moving forward, and then I was like, oh, that guy was creepy, right? And then he was back on me, just going, what did you say? And it just like frightened me, and I'm like, that guy nailed it. In that moment, we were both fucking jumped. He fucking nailed it.
Right.
He pured it. And what you want in those moments, you did it, right? You made this thing, and that's the orb. And what you want is to make it for sure. But what you also want is some recognition. You want someone to say, like, if you hit that golf shot, you look around like you're playing by yourself, and somebody that next to you is like, dude, fucking nice one. You're like, yes, thank you. You saw it. You saw it.
Right.
And so there's been two things I've gotten that way. Two things that I've had that I'm like, I pured it. One was that storytelling show. This is not happening. I just think it was like, I don't want to talk about myself, but like it was cool, and it was a way for other comics to show themselves.
No, you
did.
I can express it for you. You did an amazing thing, and those opening sequences where you'd have like these animated fight scenes and shit, they were awesome.
They were cool. It was just made it cool and fun to watch, and let people go like, hey, we're not going to censor you.
Right.
We want you to do your thing. Your fucking strip club in the woods story is like these moments that I'm also allowing other people to like. So I figured out my orbs, what I do is make stuff myself, and then also give a chance for other people to make theirs. You have the same thing. You like having other people make their things. It's one of your art forms, is allowing other people to make their hour right there. The Jew hour. It was good. It was really it was good. And so it didn't bother me at the time. I wasn't able to like make it as special. But I was able in that moment to go, but I made a really mindful, kind of perfect thing. And yeah, maybe whatever happened, like I wasn't able to make like millions of people saw it, but like thousands of people saw it. Maybe 150,000 people saw it live, But like, I made it. And I cried hard for that. Not so much like for the loss, but for like when I was able to step back and go like, I made it, and it hit me like, oh damn, dude, that was fucking good. And I just kind of said goodbye to it, and that orb went up and played for eternity. Every time you do something like artistically pure like that and nail it, you pure it, those things are up there. They're playing with each other. All the forms, the guy at Disney, the guy who made the Basilica, fucking Kurt Cobain, not Kurt Cobain, Nevermind, is up there playing with each other, enjoying each other's company forever. And I saw myself in 50 years dead, and the orbs are still playing. And I'm decaying, and the orbs are still playing. They'll be there forever. And I was able to sort of like put that behind me and say, I'll move on to my next thing. Because what I want to do is I want to make things, right? I want to make another orb. And that's kind of all I want to do now, is just make another thing. And I won't always get there, but even if you fail, even if you're like, set was so, you know what's getting you closer to a fucking perfect set. And sometimes it's just a 15-minute set at the fucking whatever club, you know? Governors or some shit where it's like, oh, I fucking nailed it. Sometimes it's a 10-minute pop in, like stuff. That earthquake thing that I saw at the Haha, that was one. Because there was some kid, some young one-year comic watching that going, oh my god, he fucking cured it in that moment.
Yeah.
But you want someone to fucking notice it once in a while. You do.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data costs, all for free. Absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just know of the Joe Rogan Experience.
Here and say like Emotive is a great company to work with. If the number
Negro still is not free. The life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. The Negro still is not free. The Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. The Negro still is not free. The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. The Negro still is not free. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. And the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You know that the average adult has 5 to 20 pounds of toxic poop in their body at any given moment? Seems crazy, right?
America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. The Negro still is not free. The Negro still is not free. The Negro still is not free. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual.
All of my exclusive content not featured here on my channel, log on to my website at I'mJustHereToMakeYouThink.com/films. OCO, my brothers and sisters, relatives, free thinkers, and spiritual warriors. Today, let's begin this segment with asking some very essential questions pertaining to this topic at hand. First, did the origins of the said last names, or rather surnames, of so-called slaves in America derive from some form of European ancestry? And if you answered yes, then what hard evidence exists today that not only supports this heavily campaigned theory, but can also confirm that it is in fact the truth indefinitely? Now, I understand that some of you would normally consider traditional information given to you to be a fact, without noticing that you just inadvertently allowed someone's opinion to be considered valuable. as a source of creditable information, in your opinion. However, a person's opinion does not mean, nor should it be automatically constituted as the truth, especially when it lacks publicly verifiable evidence to prove it. I mean, think about it. Could it be possible that certain pieces of verifiable evidence that many people are looking for today, much of it has been rewritten, altered, photoshopped, hidden, or even altogether misconstrued? Like, for example, things that were said to have been done on a particular date have been changed to reflect as other dates, allegedly due to the insertion of the Gregorian calendar. I mean, even words that you may recall its meaning today have literally changed in definition and in spelling several times over, along with the names of particular people and said locations. And even what was originally deemed as a prediction is now somehow considered a historical fact by various so-called professionals. So, finding the truth would be very complex, especially when an individual limits themselves to thinking inside of the box versus allowing themselves to experience a physical freedom in which you would not need to be deceased in order to qualify to reap its many benevolent benefits. As Western European entities established what we know now as American history, they also created a tale informing us as Americans that the use of last names, or rather surnames, derived from, quote, the need to find ways to differentiate between two people who shared the same first name, end quote. Which seems harmless at first and quite obvious, of course, if you're not conducting an investigation into the reason why the National Endowment for the Humanities, established on September 29, 1965, goes on to state, quote, because the British were among the first Europeans to settle in North America, many modern American surnames can be traced back to medieval England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, end quote. Now, this statement forces the reader to believe that since foreigners of European descent immigrated to North America some 240 years ago, that they somehow influenced millions of people already residing in North America prior to their arrival to take on European surnames over the years, without telling you exactly how it was pulled off. Which should make you ask the question, if the so-called Negro slaves of America, who were realistically undervalued agricultural employees, were treated as less of a human being and more like human cargo for sale, then what would make the said owner or employer want to attach their so-called European surname to that individual when it was not federally mandated to do so? Now, there are theories floating around stating that the slave masters marked their human properties by using their surname upon them. However, if that was actually true, then the surname Underwood, for example, would somehow have a European background, right? But the truth is, it does not. And that also means that every surname in America does not have a European background. But let's go a little bit deeper now, shall we? According to the National Endowment for Humanities Society, quote, during the Middle Ages, the feudal system meant that most people in Europe lived in small farming villages. As the population expanded and the towns grew, however, a need arose to find ways to differentiate between two people who shared the same first name, end quote. Now, I can agree with this statement, and I can also add that the so-called feudal system realistically occurred everywhere human life existed. I mean, everyone's population grew, right? So you can't tell me that since Europe's population grew, that they somehow were the first to create surnames without confirming evidence that surnames or the use of surnames never existed anywhere else before. That's just critical thinking. Now, throughout my years of investigative research, I noticed a common pattern that authors of American history loves to use. There are tons of storytelling in American history, but with very little evidence evidence to support and prove that the said stories are in fact true in most cases. So, when was the first last name or surname ever used in history? Now, the answer to this question is so complex that there is no definitive answer. However, some of you who agrees with sociology with an added mixture of mythology would immediately give the credit of surnames to the Chinese, strictly based on yet another story. As the myth, legend, or folktale goes, the Chinese have been using surnames since 2800 BC by way of royal order from the reigning Chinese emperor of their time named Fuxi. It was said that Fuxi created and mandated a naming system in order to control census taking. Since this story, along with the Emperor Fuxi story, is a myth, there is no hard evidence to support this claim or theory in this sense. The reason why it is so complex to track down and determine beyond a reasonable doubt where these last names, family names, or surnames originated from is because of the various types of surnames used all across the world. It would strictly depend on the individual and where they come from, due to multiple practices of the use of surnames varies from culture to culture. This means that it will be impossible to determine that you bear a quote European surname, because the practice of having a first name and a middle name and a last name as a mandatory rule realistically has no significant evidence to support where and when exactly it originated. Even the Indians of all of the Americas, for example, bear 2 to 5 names as an individual's full name without orchestrating it in a commonly known first name, middle name, and last name format, or so we think. Mind you, there are forms of surnames that were used throughout the history of North America and many other parts of the world as well. There are locative surnames, patronymic surnames, occupational surnames, and nickname surnames. To break each of them down, a locative surname identifies an individual based upon where he or she was born, raised, lived, worked, or the land they own, which makes this surname not qualified for consideration of being of European origin. For example, Charles Darwin was probably a descendant of a family that previously lived in the market town called Darwin, which is located in Lancashire, England. Or let's take the actor Lawrence Fishburne, for example, in which the surname Fishburne could indicate that Lawrence's ancestors worked as cooks that specializes in seafood cuisine, or just simply frying fish. Another example of a locative surname could also be referring to a particular geographical identifier, in which most cases is self-explanatory, like for example, the actor Blair Underwood, in which the surname Underwood could be an indicator that refers to a family who resides near or throughout the woods. Or it could also mean that his ancestors owned acres of lands, particularly within the woods. No European origin yet. Now, a patronymic surname identifies an individual as their father's child or their father's children. However, it is very important to note that this surname does not translate to a fixed family surname, in which this also means that it does not qualify to be considered as a surname of any European origin. Like for example, take pro NFL running back Adrian Peterson. The surname Peterson could indicate that Adrian is the son of Peter, which would equate to being Adrian, Peter's son. Or in some cases it will read as Peter's son Adrian, or in modern times, Adrian Peterson, by dropping one letter S. Other examples of patronymic surnames would be Jackson, Williamson, Richardson, Robinson, Wilson, Jefferson, Johnson, Woodson, or any other said surname ending with the suffix son. Now, in most cases, you would discover that the vowels of the said letters would change as well, like the surname Steelman would later be spelled as Steelman, with 2 letter E's in the word steel, and the letter A replaces the letter E in the word man, but it keeps its original pronunciation. Still not finding any European origin yet. So now, occupational or status surnames identifies an individual based upon their social status or their occupations. Some of you can recall noticing many occupational surnames throughout multiple different languages, almost as if it was a common practice for many countries across the world over the years. This also means that these types of surnames do not originate from just one large landmass to another. However, it does indicate that some cultures of particular countries shared some similarities. But that does not mean that one copied the other or one started that tradition before the other. No. Haven't you ever heard the saying, great minds think alike? Now, don't get me wrong here. There are tons of traditional methods of particular people's cultures, languages, identities, and more that were either copied, adopted, erased, or even stolen for that matter. But that's not the point here. The point is, when you are researching your family's genealogy by records, that does in fact exist. In most cases, you will discover that you do not have any form of European ancestry, as long as you are referring to actual physical historical genealogy records of your family, and not some mysterious genealogy DNA ancestry test that disclaims that it is just for entertainment purposes only. Let's take the name James Farmer, for example, as an occupational surname. This would indicate that he is the James of the farmers, or he could just simply be a farmer named James. Other examples would be Smith, Butler, Wheeler, Booker, Turner, Cooker, Taylor, or Baker, just to name a few. And logically speaking, you cannot determine that their origins are from some random place in Europe without first determining what common language was used in order for foreigners to communicate with our ancestors here in the Americas upon their arrival. Which should make you ask the question, was there ever a common language to begin with? How did foreigners communicate with other foreigners without a translator? How did ship owners in America allegedly sail all the way to West Africa in hopes of purchasing human cargo without some form of common language to use to communicate with? Now, a nickname surname identifies an individual based upon commonly known attributes or adjectives that will best describe that person in some way. It could be based upon personal characteristics, shape, size, color of hair, skin complexion, or even for some derogatory motives an individual may have for another individual or group of people for that matter. Contrary to popular belief, nicknames have been around for many generations throughout thousands of different cultures across the world. So we can immediately rule out this type of surname with having some origins in Europe easily. There are various types of nicknames used throughout history, like for example, nearly all religious institutions calls for its members to bear a formal nickname, traditionally. Like a traditional Christian nickname can be identified often by 2 given nicknames, or rather 4 names, instead of 1 at the time of baptism, like Mary Ann or Anne Mary, for example. The actor Morgan Freeman also bears a religious nickname surname as well, due to the many so-called black people who refused to change their surnames before and even after the Emancipation Proclamation was established. When you are conducting genealogy research on your families, meaning a paper trail, you will soon discover that many of our ancestors did in fact use their own created surname that was royally different from the surname that was allegedly given to them by their employers at the time of signing their indentures, or rather labor contracts, now known as applications of employment. Our ancestors manifested independence and freedom by rejecting foreign surnames to be a part of their family's lineage, especially at the time of the Emancipation Proclamation. Keep in mind that many of the surnames of our ancestors had to be written into a record. This changes everything that you were ever told of when it comes to so-called American descendants of slavery. This is why it is very essential to check the records of your family's genealogy before you go out and state to the public that your family bears a European surname, when you have absolutely no idea that you could be inadvertently disrespecting your very own people that fought for your freedom and to build this country. I'm just here to make you think.
The snowflakes, but I made a search engine that actually supports your values. I'm a conservative my entire life, and I noticed that Google and other search engines always pander to whatever special interest group of the day is telling them to do things, and they'll put it all over their homepage, and they'll influence their rankings based on it, and there's a lot of evidence.
Australia's shutting down again. Australia's totally locking down. Like, it's going to be hard to leave your home locking down. Why? Australia is a pretty rough and tumble place. It was a landmass settled by British criminals. It has flying foxes and gigantic spiders and all sorts of things that are going to try to kill you. And they survive because they're tough people out there, right? Until the Wu flu killed one more person, one more death, and the country shuts down.
Good evening. Within hours, Sydney will be in the grip of much tougher restrictions. The Premier clamping down on the stubborn Delta outbreak with what she's calling a no-regrets policy. And this is why. From a record 82,000 tests, the state today recorded 111 cases, and tragically the third COVID death in this outbreak, a man aged in his 80s from the city's southeast. Across Greater Sydney, retail shops will now close. A small list of essential stores can remain open. Construction sites across the city shut down. And from midnight tonight, 110 suburbs across Liverpool, Fairfield and Canterbury Bankstown will be sealed shut. That's 900,000 residents who can't leave their area, even for work.
So you've got hundreds of thousands of tests, well over 100,000 tests. You've got a relatively small number of cases, some hundreds of cases, and you've got one more death. The third of this outbreak, but now just this one death from this round of testing. So they're going to shut down everywhere. They're going to shut down whole suburbs. You can't go to work. You are locked basically in your home. Shut down retail shops because the lady running Australia wants to have no regrets. Something tells me that the people who can't pay their bills are going to have some regrets. Something tells me the people who can't go to church are probably going to have some regrets. The people who can't be with their loved ones while they die, some regrets. The people who can't get married, that's the people who can't bury their dead, some regrets. You get the point. People who can't live their lives, I think, are going to have some regrets. In the amount of time that it took to watch just that clip from that segment on Australia's Channel 9 News, 90 people died. Not from COVID, they just died. Because people die. People die all the time. They die from a whole host of causes. They die from heart attacks, they die from cancers, they die from car accidents, they die from pianos falling on their head while they walk across the street. People die. That's a fact. Mortality is a fact of life that in modernity we try to deny as best we can. But it's true. All of life is a preparation for dying. Get used to it. You will have a much better life if you accept this fact. And because hanging concentrates the mind, you will also, one hopes, look beyond just this mortal coil to the metaphysical underpinnings of our world. But we can't do that in our age. So while the Wu flu kills relatively very few people, very, very few people as a proportion of those who are dying, Australia is shutting down again. That will happen here if we do not exercise our political power and push back. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. That's the name of this entire episode. You like the clip, you'll like the episode. Yeah, we actually do talk about Eric Clapton on that show, because Eric Clapton is taking a firm stand against vaccine mandates. Head on over right now to the Michael Knowles Show on YouTube. You can get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, MySpace, Zanga, Live Journal, and you can also get my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. See you next time.
Tucson versus Honda CR-V. Look what Tucson has, and what CR...
According to a recent study, nearly one... Recently, the Supreme Court was asked to decide whether it's discriminatory for the government to only require men to register for the draft and not women. The court declined to hear the case, but I saw a commercial this week from a group that hopes to change their mind. Take a look.
Women can be smart. Women can be sexy. Women can be powerful. So why can't women forcibly engage in unnecessary foreign conflicts? Well, now they can. Introducing the draft for women. Beyonce, Cher, Madonna. Those are just 3 of the many women who exist in the world. And if men with 2 names can be pulled out of their homes to risk their lives overseas, then why can't they? Women have been serving in the armed forces for years, but it's always been a choice they've had to make. Whereas men have the privilege to not make choices at all. Does that sound fair to you? It's 2021. Isn't it about time we give women the agency to have no agency at all?
For my 21st birthday, all I wanted was to get a letter in the mail saying I had to leave my family behind and join the war. When I didn't get one, my friends and I just spent the night taking shots of Jameson. But this birthday, I'm taking shots at Jameson. Whoever that is, like, wait.
Who run the world? Girls. Isn't it about time we ran the drone strikes, too? Let's turn this military into a gilitary. You know, like, chill. It's a woman's name.
I'm U.S. General Hank Thunderbarton, and I approve this message. I always said that women should have to kill people just as much as men do, and they should enjoy the perks of that killing, like free nightmares and PTSD. I mean, I'm a feminist. I love women. Hey, my wife is one of those. And if she wants to get oil from the Middle East, who am I to tell her no? Are you saying my wife doesn't deserve oil? I didn't think so.
The draft for women. You've had your fun, boys. Let's traumatize the women for a change.
The draft for women. Strong enough for a man, but made for a woman.
De las piezas de siempre y refresca tus espacios con piezas hechas por tus propias.
Question party is very simple. We got tweeted questions and now we're going to answer them. Okay, Grub Hooligan asked, I just read that NBC is going to send you to cover the Olympics. Congratulations! What will you be doing? Okay, well, I'm going to go to the Olympics with Jenny Hagel, and we're going to just do fun little segments and sketches and goofing around. Also, during the Olympics, there'll be coverage on NBC, and there'll also be coverage on Peacock. And every morning, there will be a show called Tokyo Live. I'll be on that sometimes, doing segments, goofing around, and, like, chasing down athletes that I am in love with and telling them so.
Yay!
Look, I know you are very strong, but I love you.
I love you too.
That is very possible.
Yeah.
Next question. At SK Cage asked, in which Olympic event do you think you could feasibly participate and do well? Oh my gosh, what's sad is their SK Cage's TV does not work. It only has audio. Because dang, dude, I'm 42, I can't do nothing. This is my Olympic event. This is it. And ha ha ha, but if this sitting, yelling, and enjoying a margarita was an Olympic event, buddy, I would bring home the gold. No, but honestly, what Olympic event would I do the best in? I would, I did do gymnastics, so I know for a fact that ain't it. If cheerleading was an Olympic sport, I could get in there a little bit. I could flip around and yell and cheer.
Yeah. I mean, I ran track, and so I know that ain't it. If dodgeball was an Olympic event, I would have crushed dodgeball. Like, really? I was impossible to hit.
Really?
I was like Neo in the Matrix. Like,
If there was an Olympic sport called Don't Dodgeball, where you had to get hit first, I would definitely would. No, but maybe if there was an Olympic event I had to try to do well in, I would do climbing.
Climbing.
I would try climbing. I would try it.
Yeah. Oof. I don't think there's anything my body, even at its peak, like I didn't do gymnastics as proficient as you, but like.
No. Tarek can do some gymnastics. Kip up to a handstand. Tarek can kip up to a handstand. In a handstand, his feet are off the ground, but like this.
That was pre-pandemic
Tarek.
Tarek.
Kip his legs up into a handstand, just muscle it.
That was pre-pandemic Tarek. Now I can just do a handstand.
You guys, Tarek is my most athletic friend, and I am your least athletic friend. That's all the time we have left for Question Party. That was great. Let's do it again soon. You guys, it's been a crazy week in America. Let's find out what happened. More than 70 McDonald's restaurants in California this week began offering free coronavirus vaccines to the public. But don't bother trying to get it. The vaccine machine is broken.
No.
While conceding the New York City mayoral race on Tuesday, candidate Andrew Yang said, quote, "There was so much about New York City I did not know." Said the person he was talking to, "This is Newark."
The big Snapple.
If I can make it here, I've made a thing.
No, that's not how it goes.
According to
Newport.
Newport. Oh no, he doesn't know what he was running for. According to new reports, the NYPD is expected to exceed its overtime budget for the year by over $160 million. Damn, if they keep that up, those police are going to defund themselves. According to the New York Times, a lab recently analyzed the tuna from several Subway tuna sandwiches and found that they contained
absolutely no tuna. No tuna at all.
Disturbing news out of Vernon Central High School.
What's going on? Undertaxing students have guns.
We are in charge now, so pull out whichever app you use to do live streaming video. Get them up and running and point it at me. Now!
There's guys with guns everywhere.
Get down on the ground! Any more friends back there?
Is it safe to say that this might be your guardian angel? Do you want more people to die?
That's the last thing I want.
I'm gonna kill one person in this room every 5 minutes. You don't show your face. You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Isn't it, everyone? After all your hard work, people aren't gonna remember you.
No?
They're gonna.
The internet is like a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. While some are just stupid and funny, others promote ignorance and an unhealthy distrust. So, we went to the Kurzgesagt lab and developed a foolproof system to destroy not all, but a lot of conspiracy theories. It's really simple. Just ask yourself, does the theory affect really rich and powerful people? Is the answer yes? Okay, then it's most likely not true. Let's test it on 3 examples. Number 1. There's an easy cure for cancer, but it's withheld because it would destroy the profits of pharma companies. Do really rich people die of cancer? Like, I don't know, say the former CEO of Apple? Yes. There is no suppressed cure for cancer. Number 2, chemtrails. The theory that aeroplanes spray chemicals in the air for population control or some other crazy reason. Do really powerful people breathe air? Do Obama or Putin breathe air? Yes. Chemtrails are not a thing. Number 3, apocalyptic conspiracy theories. The world will end soon because of the Antichrist, Mayas, aliens, someone says so. Do really rich and powerful people ignore the soon-to-be upon us and very imminent apocalypse? Yes. The world will not end soon. This obviously doesn't work for every conspiracy theory out there, but it does work for some of the most stupid ones. So the next time someone tries to convince you that the Illuminati put stuff in your water, just show them this video, and maybe be a bit more selective about your friends on Facebook.
Boozy, what's up, bro?
Richard Branson, and I have a once-in-a-lifetime invitation for you. Would you like to travel to space? Well, I recently flew aboard a Virgin Galactic spaceflight alongside an incredible crew and had the most remarkable experience seeing Earth from above. And I'm thrilled to pass that opportunity on to you now. Virgin Galactic is joining up with Amaze to offer you and a guest the chance to win a trip to space aboard one of the first ever commercial space flights. You'll be flown out to meet me for a private tour of Spaceport America, where we'll prepare you to be among.
We are prisoners on Earth. The universe taunts us by showing us all the places we can't ever visit. However, if our species wants to have a long-term future, we have to escape our prison. But what's keeping us here in the first place? Turns out we owe the universe a debt that is 4.5 billion years old. Everything with mass in the universe attracts every other thing with mass. We call this phenomenon gravity. The closer you are to a big chunk of mass, the stronger the attraction, or the more you're pulled in. This effect traps us on Earth. We can imagine this as being prisoners in a gravity prison or a gravity well. It's not a literal well, but a handy concept to understand how this works. Being in a gravity prison means that you owe gravity energy. But how can you owe energy? Because in our universe, things don't want to change their speed or direction. To convince them to move, you have to expend energy. Billions of years ago, the gravitational attraction of trillions of dust particles orbiting our sun pulled them together until they formed a planet. This process used energy and created the gravity well we're now a part of. The deeper you are inside a gravity well, the more energy you owe gravity. If you don't find a way to get enough energy, you're not able to leave, no matter what you do. Because your atoms were once part of the dust that the universe expended energy on to get to this place. Okay, let's summarize all of that again. Objects in the universe don't like to move. You have to convince them to do so with energy. Gravity used energy to convince the parts that make up our planet to move together. This created a gravity prison in the process, trapping us. To escape it, we need to repay it with energy. Okay, how do we do that? To get into space, we need to go through a complicated process of exchanging energy. For this purpose, we build negative potential energy repaying machines, known by their more boring name, rockets. Rockets work by using some of the most energetic chemical reactions humans know about to basically explode fuel in a controlled way. This converts chemical energy into kinetic energy. The exhaust of the reaction is directed outwards and pushes the rocket away from Earth. By expending a lot of energy, we are increasing our gravitational potential energy, which is a complicated way to say that we're paying back our energy debt to gravity. But it's actually a lot trickier than that. When you burn fuel to get into orbit, you lose lots of energy to heat, the exhaust, and atmospheric drag, so you actually need much more. And you can't just pile a huge amount of really explosive, dangerous fuel close to your payload and detonate it. You need a controlled burn, which is complicated and makes your rocket very heavy, which means it has more mass. The more mass something has, the more energy you need to convince it to move. So you need more fuel to lift up your rocket. But if you need more fuel, that means you need more rocket to carry that fuel. But this makes your rocket heavier, thus requiring more fuel, which requires more rocket to carry that new fuel, and so on. At the end of this madness, you need closer to 100 times the weight of your payload to launch. Ariane 6, for example, the European rocket, will weigh 800 tons and should be able to transport 10 tons into geostationary transfer orbit or 20 tons into medium Earth orbit. But a rocket can only produce so much thrust, so there's a maximum weight after which it just won't take off. If you add too much weight, it won't lift off, so you can't just build bigger and bigger fuel tanks. This is the tyranny of the rocket equation, and it means spaceflight will never become easy. But wait, it gets worse. Getting to space is still not good enough. You're still inside the gravity prison at the edge of space, and will crash back to Earth. Staying in space is much harder than getting there. To get to a stable position where it can stay for a while, a rocket has to reach low Earth orbit. To do this, you need a lot of kinetic energy, which means going extremely fast. At an altitude of about 100 kilometers, this is 8 kilometers per second, 28,000 kilometers per hour. Fast enough to travel around Earth in 90 minutes. Here, we can use a trick. Instead of flying straight up, we can go sideways. Earth is a sphere, so if you're going sideways fast enough, even though you're falling towards Earth, the ground will curve away beneath you. So as long as you're above the atmosphere, about 100 kilometers up, you'll be able to stay up there in orbit. This is what the ISS does, falling around Earth, expending energy from time to time to stay fast enough. If we look at orbits in scale, we see that near-Earth orbit is laughably close to Earth. To deploy, for example, satellites or leave for other planets requires another round of energy debt repayment. Getting to orbit is the most difficult part of spaceflight for us right now. For example, if we want to send a rocket to Mars, half the energy is necessary just to get into orbit, and the other half for the 55 million kilometers to Mars. Therefore, to be as effective as possible, rockets aren't built in one giant piece. Instead, we use multi-stage rockets. You don't need to carry an empty fuel tank, so rockets drop it. Rockets today shed their boosters and main stage as they ascend, with each successive stage being its own fully contained rocket, complete with its own engine and fuel. Okay, so this is why getting to space is hard. If you feel all of this seems really complicated, don't worry. It's literally...
I really need to get this painting done, but I don't know. I got the munchies right now. Next, I might go stream some video games for my girlfriend come home. And since I got my YouTube back, what? Yeah, I've been back playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, yo. The PvP on there. I've been playing that pretty hard, yo. I suck at that shit, yo. Like, real bad. Even when it first came out, I was never really good at that shit, but it's such a fun PvP experience that I don't know. I was playing Call of Duty and got kind of tired of that. Then I went back to Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That was the second installment of the Ghost Recon series. And then I was playing the Breakpoint PvP, and I'm sitting there thinking just like, yo, they changed so much shit from the first one, from Wildlands, yo. And I really was like, yo, I like the Wildlands PvP better than the newer one on Breakpoint. So I just loaded that shit back up, man, and been playing that shit for like almost 2 weeks now. And I don't know. I might just keep playing that until Call of Duty, I mean not Call of Duty, but Battlefield comes out. Oh, I wanted to reload that one other game too. It's a free game, and it's like 4-on-4 squads, and you jump out. It's not, damn what the name of that shit is. Royals? No, that's not it. It was damn. But that was a fun free game, yo. I might download that shit again. I forgot the name of that one fucking thing, yo. What was that shit? You know what they've changed a lot and added a lot too? Apex Legends. I used to go hard on Apex. Once again, I'm not really good at those first-person online PvP zones, but I still like to play them shits though. And that goddamn I keep seeing like all the add-ons and updates and expansions they put on Apex Legends. I might get back into that. I need to get my shooter skills back up before that Battlefield come out, so I don't look like a fucking noob on that shit, yeah. Can't be a noob on the Battlefield. But then that's the thing, I don't even want to practice on the Battlefields we got now. If anything, swear to God, I'll go back and play some Battlefield 4, yo. I honestly think that was like my last enjoyable Battlefield experience, even though I had all of them. Battlefield 1 was like okay. That shit had like okay gameplay, but less vehicles and the old weapons and just like fuck. But the 2042, Back to the Future. And no matter how many times you catch me in and out of a house, there's no way that she can have a baby out of her mouth. Listen to that Jay. Somebody's riding down the street. Listen to Jay. You hear it? That shit getting loud now. Alright, let me get to a good stopping point. Let me see. Yo, they about to do the versus battles with fucking Dipset and the Locks. Like, even right now, currently, I got like a couple of fucking Styles albums, a couple of Jada albums, and some Lock shit on my fucking playlist. I have no Dipset music at all. I have no Cameron music. I have no fucking Jim Jones albums. Even though like what's the other boy name? What they listening to now? I don't know what that is. Even the other boy, he was kind of hot, but I ain't never brought his album, yo. That's some Meg Thee Stallion or something. Oh my god, these niggas like right in my backyard or something. They like drove by and then came back. Bad Company, Bad Company. I remember that was like a 2-player game, yo. With the guys with the mask on. Like the little skull mask. Bad Company. Kind of remember that shit, yo. I don't think I ever finished that shit, though. Actually, couldn't you play that by yourself? I think I only played that by myself and never actually got online with anybody to like run through it. Like what's that other Joan? What Blunt Move said he was playing Payday, the little bank heist Joan. But wasn't that like a two-man thing where you had to have a buddy? I don't know. All right, I'm being a lazy painter. I'm about to go get on some video games. No lie, yo. What we about to play? Should I play what I said? Should I play some Ghost Recon? Or should I play some what's the other game? Oh, Watch Dogs. Ghost Recon or Watch Dogs. My two options right now. Ghost Recon or Watch Dogs. Play Dark Souls 3. I don't got that shit, bro. I don't like the Dark Souls game, man. This shit's too hard and like slow pace. I kind of like slow paced games, but not like Dark Souls so slow pace. Until I play Dark Souls 3. I don't even own that game. So this is what I did today at work. I did some bubble paintings. Some little paintings of bubbles with the kids who come to our center. It's fun times. I wish we got one from outside. We took a picture by the mural. I'll catch you guys downstairs in like 2 or 3 minutes, bro. Don't even take that long. Be right downstairs. What you say? Not because it will be easy, but because it will be hard. See, you trying to challenge me in like finding my moral compasses. Doing the right things are always hard. I don't know, Sushi. I'm gonna have to watch some gameplay before I tackle Dark Souls 3. Catch you downstairs.